Have you ever wondered how your favorite chocolate is made? Let's start by delving into the origin of this delightful treat. It all begins with a humble evergreen tree known as the cacao tree. This tree is native to tropical regions around the world, thriving under a canopy of warmth and rain. The cacao tree bears large, colorful pods, each one housing an array of cacao seeds. It's these seeds, or cacao beans, that are the heart and soul of chocolate. But the journey to becoming the chocolate that we know and love is a long one. Each cacao pod is carefully harvested by hand to protect the precious beans inside. These beans are the main ingredient in chocolate, the starting point of a process that has been perfected over centuries. Now that we know where chocolate comes from, let's dive into how it's made. The process of making chocolate begins with the careful harvesting of cacao pods. Now, this isn't your average fruit picking session. No. It's a delicate dance between human and nature, where every step matters. Imagine a cacao tree adorned with these colorful football-shaped pods. The harvesters approach these trees with respect and precision, using a blade attached to a long pole to reach the high branches. The key here is to cut the pod without damaging the tree or the precious pod itself. Once the pods are safely gathered, they're cracked open. Inside, you'll find a treasure trove of cacao beans nestled within a sweet, pulpy fruit. This is where the magic starts. The beans are removed from the pods, but not before the harvesters have a little snack. The pulp surrounding the beans, it's a sweet treat that's hard to resist. Now, with the beans liberated from their pods, they're ready for their next adventure. Fermentation. This isn't just any fermentation process. It's a crucial step that helps develop the chocolate's unique flavor. The beans are piled into heaps covered with banana leaves and left to ferment for about 5 to 7 days. During this time, the beans undergo a transformation. The sugars in the pulp ferment, producing heat and causing the beans to sweat out their moisture. This process kickstarts flavor development, turning the raw, bitter cacao beans into the base of the chocolate we know and love. While the beans are fermenting, they're regularly turned to ensure even fermentation. It's a labor-intensive process, but it's worth it. After all, we're talking about chocolate here. After the fermentation process, the beans are ready for the next step, drying and roasting. This is where the beans' flavor profile will deepen even further. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll save that story for the next scene. For now, just picture those fermented cacao beans bursting with potential, ready to take on the world. Once the cacao beans have been fermented, they need to be dried and roasted. Now, drying isn't just for your laundry. It's a crucial part of the chocolate-making process too. Picture this. The cacao beans, still slightly damp from the fermentation process, are spread out under the sun to dry. This isn't some quick afternoon picnic though. We're talking about a week-long sunbathing session for our little cacao beans. Mother Nature lends a hand here, and the sun's heat gradually evaporates the moisture from the beans. As the days pass, the beans start to lose their wet, fermented look and gain a drier, more wrinkled appearance. It's like they've aged a week in a week. But just like fine wine, this aging process is essential. It allows the beans to develop the complex flavors that will later transform into the rich, chocolatey goodness that we can't resist. Next up is the roasting. If you've ever roasted coffee beans, you'll find the process quite familiar. The dried cacao beans are heated in a process similar to roasting coffee beans. This roasting process isn't just for show, it's a flavor magician. It takes the raw cacao beans and coaxes out the sumptuous, chocolatey flavor we all know and love. Imagine the beans tumbling in a hot roaster, the heat unlocking a symphony of flavors hidden within each bean. It's a bit like when you're cooking onions, and they go from sharp and eye-watering to sweet and caramelized. The roasting process is where the magic happens, where the humble cacao bean starts to resemble the chocolate we're familiar with. You'll know the roasting's done when the beans darken and release a distinctive, mouth-watering aroma. It's the smell of pure, unadulterated chocolate in its most primal form. After roasting, the beans are ready for the next step, grinding. But that's a story for another scene. For now, let's just savor the delicious anticipation. The next step in the process is grinding and conching, so let's dive into that sweet chocolatey abyss. After our cacao beans have been sufficiently dried and roasted, they're ready to be ground. But we're not just talking about a quick spin in a coffee grinder. No, these beans are ground down into a thick, gooey paste. This paste, my friends, is what we call chocolate liquor. And no, you can't drink it, but it's a vital component in our chocolate-making journey. The grinding process is a fascinating one. The heat generated by the grinding causes the fat within the cacao beans, also known as cocoa butter, to melt. This creates a liquid mixture of cocoa solids and cocoa butter, our delectable chocolate liquor. But we're not done yet. Next comes the conching. Named for the shell-like shape of the original machines used, conching involves the chocolate liquor being mixed and heated and mixed some more. It's a process that can take anywhere from a few hours to several days. The longer the conching, the smoother the chocolate. But conching isn't just about achieving that melt-in-your-mouth texture. It's also a key stage for developing the flavor of our chocolate. You see, during conching, any lingering acidity from the fermentation process is reduced, and the flavors inherent in the cacao are given the chance to truly shine. The result? Chocolate that's as rich and complex as a bar of gold. Well, a bar of gold you can eat, that is. It's a bit like a dance, really. The grinding and the conching, the heating and the mixing, and all these steps, all this careful attention to detail, it's all part of the artistry and craft that goes into every single piece of chocolate. Once the chocolate has been conched, it's time for the final steps, tempering and molding. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll delve into those chocolatey depths in our next fascinating installment. Stay tuned and keep your sweet tooth ready. The final steps in the process are tempering and molding. Now, you might be wondering what this tempering is all about. It's like a day at the spa for our chocolate. It's where the chocolate is carefully cooled and then gently reheated. This isn't just for kicks, folks. This process is what gives the chocolate its glossy magazine cover shine and that silky texture that just melts on your tongue. Imagine this. You've got a big, beautiful bowl of liquid chocolate. It's been ground conched and it's just begging to be tempered. So you start cooling it down, but not too fast now. We want to treat it right. This cooling process allows the cocoa butter in the chocolate to solidify into a stable, crystalline form. Sounds fancy, right? Once the chocolate has reached the perfect temperature, it's time to heat it back up again. But hold your horses. We're not talking a full-on sauna here. Just a gentle heat to coax out that perfect texture and shine. This is the magic of tempering. It's like a chocolate dance of hot and cold, a tango that teases out the best in our cacao concoction. Now it's time for the grand finale, the pièce de résistance, molding. The tempered chocolate is poured into molds of all shapes and sizes. Maybe it's a heart for a loved one, or a bunny for Easter, or just a plain old bar for a Tuesday night treat. The molds are then gently shaken to remove any pesky air bubbles. We wouldn't want those ruining our perfect chocolate now, would we? Once filled, the molds are left to cool and harden, turning our once liquid chocolate into the solid, delicious treat we all know and love. It's a transformation worthy of a superhero movie, from humble cacao bean to the superstar of the sweet world. And there you have it, the journey from cacao tree to delicious chocolate. From the tropical warmth of the cacao tree to the careful craft of tempering and molding, it's a journey of love, patience, and a whole lot of chocolate goodness. So, to recap the process of making chocolate, it all starts at the very beginning with the harvesting of cacao pods. These pods are carefully plucked from the trees and then split open to reveal the precious seeds within. These seeds, or cacao beans, are then fermented, a process that really kickstarts the flavor development. After fermenting, it's time for drying and roasting. Drying helps to reduce the moisture content of the beans, while roasting further enhances their flavor. Next up is grinding, where the beans are turned into a smooth liquid chocolate. But we're not done just yet, folks. The next step is conching, a process that refines the chocolate even further, smoothing out any remaining gritty particles. Finally, we have tempering and molding. Tempering gives the chocolate its glossy finish and satisfying snap, while molding shapes it into the bars we all know and love. Next time you enjoy a piece of chocolate, remember the journey it took to get to you.